We've got a cross post today from the Legion Strength and Conditioning podcast, which is usually myself and John and Luke digging into some nitty-gritty details of training. But this time we interviewed Kristin Miller, who is on CrossFit Mayhem's team Independence for this last CrossFit Games season and is on Team Mayhem Freedom for this upcoming CrossFit Games season. So she was on the team that finished fourth place at the CrossFit Games last year, competed on OC3 Black previously. We had a conversation just about what happens daily in training at Mayhem. Are they really not on a schedule? What it was like trying out after receiving an Instagram message about coming down to Cookeville after just moving to Houston, all that kind of good stuff. So figured we'd cross-post this over here if you like what you hear and you want to hear more stuff that's about the details of training and what works and what doesn't work and crazy psychological traps that athletes fall in and all that kind of good stuff. Head on over to the Legion podcast. It's the Legion Strength and Conditioning podcast. You can check that out. We've got a few episodes up there and we're going to keep cranking them out as this content machine keeps running. Welcome to the Legion Strength and Conditioning podcast. You can check us out at legionsc.com or follow us on Instagram at legion.sc. So Kristin, one of my initial questions for you, which I don't think we've ever actually talked about, is how did you even end up at Mayhem? Because I remember you moved to Houston or something, and all of a sudden you were in Tennessee, and I was like, I thought you moved to Houston. I'm confused.
Yeah, so I moved to Houston, and I was there for about, I don't even know if I was there for 3 months, but then I think in like mid-November or so, I just got this random Instagram message from Mayhem Freedom.
It's how all the best things start.
I know, right? And they just asked like what my plans were for the season and if I had any plans on going team. And then they kind of rolled out the details and said, hey, if you want to visit, basically like, we just want you to come visit, see if you like it. If you do, sweet, come live here. So it was awesome because it was like, it's always weird going to work out with new people. Obviously just the whole new scenario. And then if it feels like you're like trying out for something, you're like, I don't know, it's just high anxiety. But they had it was really low key. They're like, no, just come out, see if you like it. If you like it, then we want you to come. And I was like, all right, sweet. And then I visited, I think early December, and then realized that I had to like quit my job and like give my 2 weeks notice like right away and figure out like moving and all that stuff. And then I was here January 1st. Woo!
How long did you spend picking out your workout clothes for your first day?
Not long, because I wear like the same 3 things every time, so.
Keep it very simple. That concept of trying out, I think, is very stressful for people, right? That people are always prone to comparing themselves to other people in just about any situation. They're like, am I good enough? Did I do a good job? Was that person thinking of me? Are they looking at me? Can they tell I'm looking at them? Like, and you know, for you, how did you handle that? I mean, were you consciously trying to just play it cool and be like, no, man, it's all good, or what was the deal?
Well, I tried to just be like kind of in the background and then just like obviously let everyone else do a lot of the talking and just see like, I mean, I kind of knew when they they sent me a message, I'm like, it's something I can't not do, you know, like I have to go do it and just at least give it a try and see what it's like. So I knew I was going to like it. Like it's basically just when I visited, it was just hanging out and then working out. So it was awesome. And everyone here is so welcoming. So I just kind of hung in the background and just like tried not to be the like obnoxious new person and just tried to just like not make too many mistakes. But we did a few workouts and I got crushed and it was good times.
Did you have that feeling when you do a partner workout and you want to like not let down your partner and impress your partner a little bit, so you're just pushing yourself a little more than you're comfortable with?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. So one of the workouts was a partner workout and I was with Hewitt, and it was muscle ups, I think, while your partner was holding a handstand. And there were other things too, but on that I was just like, here we go. I think they put me with Hewitt because he's self-proclaimed like not good at holding a handstand, but he was still awesome, and I pushed myself past my limit there. But then we did like a DT style workout. I did that with all the girls, and in between I think there was like a there's some sort of a run on the assault runner, and oh my gosh, it was like do a round of that and then run and then tag your partner in. And I just got so buried. I was like running on the salt runner, like zigzagging, like almost running off of it. Like, and I was like half sick during my visit too. So I was just like, you know, all the stress and everything. So that one I was really dying on. And then Lindy was like, yep, that's what it's like. Welcome to Cookville. So that was entertaining.
And then after that one where you're like, I've failed. I've let everyone down.
Yeah, I was like, I suck. Like, they're not going to want me anywhere. I was like, I think I apologize. I'm like, I'm sorry, guys.
So I think that, you know, a lot of people would love to get a message from one of their CrossFit heroes saying, hey, I choose you. You know, that's kind of like a weird dream that people have of just being selected to do something. But, you know, it's not necessarily just, oh, yeah, you just kind of do a good job and then someone just picks you. How did you get to the point where, you know, I mean, you've been competing for a while. So why were you the one who they sent a message to?
I still don't really know.
Cool.
but I can imagine. I mean, I was individual at regionals for a while, and then the year before I was at Mayhem, I was on the 6-person team at OC3 Black. And so I don't know if just like, I'm assuming just because there's a lot of people obviously on teams, and people don't usually change teams or like have to move somewhere where they're taken off of a team. So I don't know if they just, I seriously don't know why they message me still, but I don't know if they just saw that and they're like, oh, that's a Midwest person. You know, she obviously, I don't know if they knew that I commuted to get to OC3 every weekend and stay there for, you know, 4 days or whatever, and then commute back and work and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I was on the 6-person team, and then they're like, well, you know, obviously it's changed, and there's not 6-person teams anymore, but we're building a second team. So, you know, if you're interested, then we'd love to have you there. So, I mean, I guess it's just like a perfect storm.
Do you think it had anything to do with you getting ahead of Rich on I think it was the final event at the games in 2017?
I don't know. I've never asked.
You should ask him how he feels about that.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that would go well.
Who is this person? We must select her.
So, yeah. I think it was like a perfect storm of just circumstances and just, yeah.
So you competed at OC3 and you made some pretty serious life sacrifices to do that, right? I mean, that whole commuting thing is kind of brutal. So, I mean, I guess let's just explain the logistics of that, because I'm not sure if everyone listening would fully know, hey, this is what happens, and when people do commute to be on a team, here are the requirements they have to meet, and here's what it looks like. Yeah,
so, well, when OC3 first contacted me, I think we had like a mutual sponsor or something, and a similar thing where they like reached out on Facebook or Instagram. And I'd always wanted to be on a team, because just knowing the logistics of me as a regional athlete, I knew I probably wasn't going to make it to the games individually. And I also enjoy team sports a lot. So when they contacted me, I was like, all right, this could be pretty cool. But when they contacted me, I think it was like mid-December or something. So it was like by January 1st, by the old rules, you had to be already going to the gym. You had to be there 50% of the time, the gym that you're competing for. And so I had to make a decision pretty quickly. So I drove out there, you know, talked to them, hung out, whatever. The first workout I did, I remember I got out of the car, and Colin was like, yeah, we're doing this workout. It's a 21-15-9 of partner deadlifts. And it was like a super heavy deadlift. Never done partner deadlifts before. And then synchro chest to bar, which I'd probably done like 50 in my life before. And he's like, yeah, just here we go, like kind of thing. Like, and so once I survived that, I was like, all right. So anyway, I had to make some decisions pretty fast to be on that team. And then basically what I had to do is I contacted my boss, and he was going to let me work just like Monday through Thursday, which was weird for my job because we had to work through the weekends and everything usually. So then I would drive out Thursday night, be there all the way through Sunday, and you had to document all the workouts you did there. So I kept like a Google sheet, a Google Doc. And then you also had to take pictures of yourself with your phone. Like you're holding your phone, someone else is taking a picture of you. So it had the date and time in there. And you had to keep track of all these pictures. So I basically just created a new Google, like a new Gmail, just like threw everything in there. And they did ask for it actually. So luckily I had it all. Obviously now I guess that's not the case. We haven't seen the actual rule book, I don't think. But yeah, that was always fun.
Yeah, I was curious if anyone would ever actually look at all that stuff that they asked for.
Yes, I mean, someone actually requested it, so I had to send it through, and yeah.
When did
I guess
they
they looked through it all.
Was that like after the Open they requested that, or did they wait until
Yeah,
after regionals?
when was it? I want to say, I think it was after regionals, I want to say.
Yeah,
because
that
there's
makes
a lot
sense.
of stuff in there. I feel bad. There were a lot of bad selfies. So poor person. But yeah, they actually asked for it, and so yeah, and then was on that team, and then I knew I was going to move after that year, so I knew I wasn't going to be on that team again.
Yeah. Well, so why would you? I mean, because I think that's a huge sacrifice, right? You have to screw up your work schedule, traveling, a few hours, and then, I mean, that's terrible for training too, to travel like that and then have to stay somewhere else and not necessarily be in your own bed or eat food that you're planning on eating. And then it's like,
you're
go
right,
back again, whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, what would motivate you to do that? I mean, is it just like, I want to push myself, or what's the deal?
I guess I just knew it was like an opportunity that I should just like give it a try and see just how it went. Like obviously a 2.5 hour drive there and back all the time was like, it's like just far enough that it's like kind of annoying. And there's really not much to look at in the cornfields there. But luckily that winter it didn't snow a ton. So that was really helpful because I didn't get stuck in any snowstorms driving there and back. So that was actually really lucky. Yeah, I think it just always like when I'm given like an opportunity, I'm like, well, obviously I got to take it because there are going to be regrets if I don't. And I can just see how it goes. If it goes terribly, then I don't have to ever do it again. It's only like, when you look at it, it's only like 6 months of your life. So it's really not that far in the grand scheme of things. And in this case, it ended up actually working out really well. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's very easy for them to come up with, I don't even want to say excuses, but reasons why not to do stuff like that. But for you, it seems like it's almost the opposite. Is that generally the case?
Yeah, I think so, I guess.
Just down for whatever? Like, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
I mean, I guess it could be, a pro and a con that I just kind of like have an open, like, I wasn't super like dedicated to my job in that like I wasn't worried about like kind of when I was going to OC3, I kind of like shaved off a few hours. And so I was more committed to CrossFit. So it was actually like something really cool. And I knew it actually did it was tough because I didn't really have somewhere to stay at first. I did. And then I like changed where I was staying. And like you said, the food situation, like I kind of just ate like protein bars and like didn't really like have food very well like planned out at that point. So it was kind of a struggle, but it was a good learning experience for sure. And it was fun to learn everything about team competition because I hadn't really done like actual team competition. And I came into this environment where this team had been a successful games team for seasons upon seasons. So that was really cool to get thrown into. And they just kind of expected a lot out of me and just kind of threw me in and didn't really give me a lot of, like, unless I asked, they didn't really give me a lot of input. So it was a really good environment for learning and figuring things out, which was fun.
Yeah, so you mentioned food stuff. You have some dietary restrictions also.
Yeah, I eat fish, but I don't eat other kinds of meat and everything else.
Yeah,
Not just strictly fish.
I only eat
That's
fish.
It.
That's a Swedish fish or?
Preferably, yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool. But that's something that, I mean, within the CrossFit community, obviously, a lot of people are always flaunting how much meat they eat and how they love meat and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, what's the deal with that? Explain yourself.
Well, I was vegetarian for a long time, and then I was actually vegan when I first started CrossFit. And then I realized,
me too.
Were you?
Yeah.
And then I realized, well, maybe I need to get a little bit more protein here, and not maybe from a bunch of soy products. So then I started using whey protein, and then slowly I started eating eggs. And then after that, I started eating fish too, just because I got sick of eating so many eggs. And I just have a passion for animal rights and the environment and all that kind of stuff that goes along with that. So I just try to stick to those values a little bit.
Yeah, so it's an ethical concern for you. It's not like and
I mean, health-wise too, and like environment. I remember like way back in the day in like high school, I did a speech on like factory farming or something horrific, and I just can never get those pictures out of my brain, so they're just stuck there.
Sure. And did you initially become vegetarian via like punk music or anything like that, or what was the exposure to that concept?
No, I think it was from me giving that speech. I was like, wow, this is like something crazy that I didn't even know that existed, because obviously society kind of tries to hide that, I feel like, from people. And as a kid, like no one really talked to me about that. And so once I figured that out, I was like, wow, that's pretty scary. I don't really want to be a part of that anymore. But then I kind of got into that like scene a little bit. Once you kind of choose a certain path, you can find other people that are on that path too. So
the assignment in school was literally give a speech on factory farms?
No, it was give it on whatever you want. And I don't know why I picked that. I can't even remember why I did. Like, it probably was a really annoying speech, honestly, because people are like, why are you talking to me about this? I don't want to know. I'm like, I want the world to know.
Yeah. So you essentially were researching this concept because of this speech, and then based upon that research, you're like, you know what? I'm convincing myself of this as I go.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I don't know how I was first exposed to vegetarianism, but I definitely went vegetarian as a 12-year-old and caused a lot of irritation amongst my family. Yeah. Just like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And I think it was probably somewhat similar, where it was a pretty, half-baked conception of ethics surrounding it, but I was very convinced of it. I was like, no, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. And it's like, it's funny because people always want to talk to you about your dietary restrictions or what, even if they're self-imposed. And it's like the same conversation over and over again. And it's just funny. I don't know how you do it. Well, I mean, if you cut anything out of your life, you don't really realize how much you're missing it, right? I mean, so
well,
and it's not like I'm missing out on anything. So, so it's just kind of funny when you get into conversations with people. I'm like, I just try to like keep it under the radar so we don't have to like have the whole.
Well, now it's on the podcast, and there's going to be potentially dozens of people who know about
this. Maybe 2.
I think both our listeners will be interested to hear that.
But yeah, I think that it's really just discipline, right? It's discipline in any form. And people say the same thing about people working out, or people say the same thing about people, not watching TV or whatever. I don't know how you do it. It's like, well, you just don't.
Yeah,
or you just do. It's not really that. It's not a thing. You just decide it and then you do it.
And once it becomes kind of more, it's like hard initially, like the first however long. And then once you get those patterns, it's like, and habits, then it makes it easy. Because you're just following the same thing you always do,
So do you do like any meal prep? And like, how does that look not having meat in there?
I usually meal prep just for lunch, because luckily I'm at home for breakfast and dinner, and then I just have tons of snacks. But usually I just do like something simple like rice and veggies and then tuna for lunch.
Okay.
Just because it's low maintenance and easy and healthy.
Contrasting to my meal prep, which is let's see how much meat we can grill today.
How many kinds of meat can we have here?
John attempts to eat 200 grams of fat per day.
No, seriously?
Those are his macros.
That's just what I used to.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
before you tracked it, or?
Before I started tracking,
John,
I tracked for a week before I started tracking just to see what I was eating. And yeah, there was a couple of days up around 200 fat.
That's amazing.
Honestly, it's really just a hangover from when I started CrossFit. Everything was about paleo.
Paleo, yep.
And when I was doing paleo, it was just, as long as it's like whole foods, eat as much as you like. And yeah, I went through some serious fat. But
I guess it's pretty
yesterday
easy
I didn't
to
even
do.
hit my fat numbers. I had like 90 grams of fat yesterday. I was 10 grams short of my allowed fat.
Dude, John's on a high carb keto diet.
All protein and fat with a few hundred grams of carbs to top it off.
Yeah, exactly. That's excellent. So Kristin, you went to regionals a few times as an individual. Before that, I mean, did you start CrossFit and then immediately decide, hey, you know what, this is a sport and I love competing and winning, or was it kind of something you stumbled into?
Well, I initially started going to CrossFit because my brother started going, and once I got there and started working out, luckily the gym I was going to then, the owner was competitive, and so he actually went to regionals that year, the first year I was at that gym, and was into competing and going to local competitions and stuff back then. So luckily right away I was like exposed to it, and I was like, oh, this is cool, and like kind of sparked my interest right away that you could compete in it, as I was kind of learning how to do all the movements and stuff. And so I started in like November, and they made me do the open, and I'm like, I don't want to do the open. I'm not even good enough to do 6 toes to bar unbroken. And they're like, no, it'll be good for you type of thing. So, yeah, I think the first competition I did was RX, and I just got crushed by everyone. And then I did one scaled one, and then from then on out, I just did RX after that. But yeah, right away, luckily, the guy that owned that gym just kind of threw me into competition, so that was good.
So you were sort of pushed to compete right away. And I mean, did you have a competitive background? Are you someone who's always like, you know what, when I decide to do something, I'm going to do it and I'm going to get as good as possible and try to beat people? Or is that something that, yeah, a little bit?
I think so,
bit of
yeah.
that edge? Yeah.
I was doing like long distance running before I found CrossFit. And so I did one marathon, didn't really like it. And then I did some half marathons, and I felt like I was pretty decent. And I was, injured and like hobbling around and still trying to like beat people in those runs because I just had all these overuse injuries from like only running ever. And then before that, in sports and stuff, I gave up all the other sports. I loved to do volleyball. And so I was there like multiple hours a day. So they kind of instilled that in me too, which was nice.
So it's always been kind of a little bit of a competitive edge of, all right, I'm going to do this thing and I'm just going to take it as far as I can.
I think so, I guess.
Yeah. And does that apply to other stuff outside of fitness? Do you do that with other things that you're interested in, like animal rights?
I guess I am kind of like an extreme person, because when I first jumped into like being vegetarian, I was totally that like obnoxious person that was like, you shouldn't eat meat, you need to, And
did you have pamphlets that you were giving out?
I may have ordered some. I don't think I ever handed them out, but like I
Yeah.
ordered some for sure. And
Yeah, we definitely had pamphlets that we gave out like at all the high school punk shows.
And no one even like reads them. They're just like, oh yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And then when I like got into skydiving, I was all about that for a little bit. And then, I think just whatever you're doing. I mean, right now, obviously with competing in CrossFit, it's like you find yourself thinking like, I really love this, but I am at the gym a lot of the time and I don't do a lot of other things, obviously. So, when competing ends, which inevitably it will at some point, then it'll be nice to like go out and like find something new to go do,
with training then, I mean, you just mentioned you're training all the time. And before we kind of started, we were talking before we started recording. You're like, yeah, there's no real schedules here. We just kind of do whatever.
Is not.
Yeah. So I think that people are always very curious about what people actually do, right? That's everyone has a bunch of sort of half-baked ideas of, oh, well, you know, games athletes do this, or people do this, or they do this many workouts per day or whatever. So given that there's no schedule, what actually happens? People just kind of randomly show up and just magically fitness occurs? What's the deal?
There's a little bit more of a schedule than that. We do usually, last year we kind of met up around 10 o'clock, everyone on the 2 teams or whatever, and then we kind of like hang out / I don't even know really, like not workout. Oops, just lost me. For about an hour maybe. And then in that time frame, at some point, Rich goes up to the whiteboard and writes up a workout. And we just kind of get warmed up, and then we do the workout. And then maybe we hang out for just a little bit, recover for a little bit, and then we'll do like some sort of lifting or other workout. And then at some point there's a lunch break, and some people might have some meetings. And then we reconvene at some point in the afternoon and do some more working out. But the really crazy thing about being here is a lot of people have their programming like, you know, at least a week in advance or at least a day in advance. So they know what they're going to be doing the next day. And here it's not like that at all. We literally just go like off the cuff every day based upon how everyone's feeling as to what workouts we're doing. So that's an interesting thing to get used to, especially with like when you're first showing up and no one is really like saying anything, and you're like waiting for something to happen, and everyone's just kind of like hanging out and like not really like seemingly doing anything. And then once you kind of get the hang of it, then you're like, okay, this is cool. And it's actually like a really beautiful thing for a competition and like competing at regionals or the games, really the games, because we can have any workout thrown up there, and there comes a point where you realize it's useless to like waste energy being disappointed by what was written on the board or being like upset that you have to do this movement. You just kind of like see what was written there. All right, let's get warmed up and then let's get ready to go type of thing. So there's like the environment here is really conducive to the CrossFit Games and the way those workouts are usually announced.
So do you guys ever follow like a structured program when it comes to like strength development or anything like that? Or is everything run off the cuff?
No, everything is run off the cuff.
Okay. Do you think Rich secretly has like a plan that he just makes it seem like it's random, or?
Maybe, I don't know. He'll ask us too, though, like, you know, oh, what do you guys want to do today? Type of thing. So, I mean, I don't know. It might just be all off the cuff. I don't really know.
Yeah, I think that it's so interesting, right? As someone who people pay me money to give them detailed structure, and to, you know, have the exact opposite be like, hey, some of the best people in the world are doing this just completely, like we said, off the cuff. But I think that what can be difficult for people seeing that is that you all have a much better intuition about what you respond to in training and how your body's feeling and what you can tolerate than other people do. So when a lot of people try to do something where they just put stuff together on the fly, they just do insane stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Because they don't have the intuition or the background or the understanding of the sport kind of on an intuitive level to put it together appropriately. So, I mean, I think that, you know, it sounds crazy to say, oh, we just make it up as we go, but you're really relying on a pretty powerful intuition and understanding of the sport to put stuff together. So how have you seen that everyone at Mayhem has developed that capacity, like that intuition surrounding what needs to be worked on and how you feel on a given day and all that kind of stuff?
I mean, I think honestly, like when Rich asks us what we want to do, it's basically like, are you so sore that like you can't, I mean, the way I take it, like, are you so sore that you can't do a certain movement or whatever? So, like, unless, usually what it comes down to is like, what have we actually like not done movement wise that week that like we're just thrown out there once it gets towards the end of the week. And I mean, really, it's just Rich, the mastermind, just going up there and programming whatever. And we do our own like strength stuff on the side and accessory and stuff like that. But when it comes to the actual like Metcons, he does it all. So it's really, I mean, usually it's not a lot of input from us. We usually just say like, if there's something we really can't do that day or something. But I mean, like you said, it comes down to him having done this for 10 years now and having programmed for himself for like 10 hours a day when he was an individual too, and just kind of knowing programming for team. And we do a lot of individual workouts. We don't really do a lot of team until it comes down to like, when we used to have regionals, closer to regionals and stuff like that with a worm. So a lot of times it's just like waterfall style. We'll just go through and do stuff individually, and then, we'll go through a workout, and it'll be 3 rounds or whatever, and then we rest while the other person doesn't. We'll go through like 3 times or whatever, or more.
So it ends up being kind of like interval work then, if you're just kind of working back and forth with partners.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think something else that is interesting is the amount of volume that you guys do in a given day, right? That obviously it's high, right? A lot of people who are training at the top level are doing a lot of stuff. But I'm curious how you think about how much work you're actually doing in a given day. And when people throw out workout numbers like, oh, I did 15 workouts today or whatever, right? That doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to everyone. So what does a typical day of volume look like?
Well, we did slow down a little bit after the games, and we were just doing like one session, maybe like 2.5 hours. And granted, we're not working out like the entire time then, where we would do like a longer workout and then do strength. And then now we've been doing, usually it's like we're there for like a few hours in the morning and then a few hours a night. I never really know how to like actually quantify the amount of time we're working out, because obviously there's a decent amount where we're recovering from workout and then going and do another one or something like that. But I think we're probably at the gym right now or at the barn or whatever, probably like maybe 4 hours, maybe.
Yeah. And so you guys are also not doing, okay, here's part A, roll right into part B, roll right into part C. It's like, we're going to do this, then we're going to kind of hang out.
Sometimes.
I guess maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, exactly. Since we don't have like,
so
I was like, anything. We usually just have like what let's do this workout written up on the board. Like the first thing we're gonna do that day, is what Rich writes up. At that point, we were kind of training. It's kind of like at the gym. We just wait. So there's always like even when we're gonna do type of thing. Like, but a lot of times with the workouts, there's always other people jump in with too. It'll be like a workout. I realized like. Tasia and I realized we're roommates, so we started talking about it. We haven't had a rest day in like over 2 weeks, and then like your body will hurt, but more it'll be like mentally, like I'll all of a sudden get like really like emotional and just be like, I hate working out, and I'm like, and then I realized like when that happened a few times, I'm like, all right, like I know maybe other people don't need to take a rest day, but I'm mere human, and I realized I need to take a rest day. So now I take one on Sundays, like every week. And then usually Thursdays are like a little bit lighter. Like today we're going to swim and then do like maybe just some cardio stuff. But yeah, when we were just going, like all of a sudden there were a few days where I was like, it wasn't even that I was necessarily that sore, but just mentally I was just like, crushed. Like we were about to start a workout and I just like wanted to cry for no reason. Like it was really weird.
Telltale signs of overtraining, crying at the thought of starting a workout. If you are experiencing this, you may be overtrained. If the thought of working out makes you cry. So you mentioned that you.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, like you're frazzled and you're like hate everybody and you're like, what is going on right now? Oh wait, my body just doesn't want to keep moving anymore. It needs to like sit down for a little bit.
Yeah, signals are being sent.
Yes.
Please listen to us. Please don't ignore me anymore. So you mentioned that you guys don't do much actual teamwork other than leading into competition. Is that because I think that's really interesting, right? Because the CrossFit as a team sport is a little strange. It's not like other sports where you have to, run plays or get used to someone's tendencies. We're like, oh, you're gonna zig. I thought you were gonna zag, man. Like my bad. I passed the ball over there. You know what I mean? It's not like that. So it is kind of this weird collection of individuals who have to be really good at stuff, but there is still a certain element of needing to be able to communicate or react well to stress or something unexpected happening. So how do you guys find that balance in terms of developing yourselves as athletes, but still getting touches on that team communication style stuff?
Yeah, I think especially in CrossFit team competition, it just pays that we're together every day, basically. So even though we may not be doing a partner or team workout, we do see each other work out all the time. So we kind of just can see that way, people's weaknesses and strengths, and just kind of know the way they move and how they work out. And then that makes it easier for like nonverbal communication in working out in competition, as to, not really having to say like, where I know Tasia's going to do a set of, obviously we'll talk before the workout, but I know she can crank out a set of however many toe to bar, and then, she can just hop down and we don't have to talk about it. Or even when we do partner up to do, synchro toe to bar, we know kind of the sets that we're going to be doing, and there needs to be less speaking, and there can just be more like, oh, we already understand each other, and then there's less effort given there, and you can give more effort in the workout type of thing. You know what I mean? So just being familiar with the people that are just because we're in the same environment all the time, we're familiar with each other. And also we found too, with like, if we're doing partner workouts and it's male female, like, I mean, to be honest, the male usually doesn't get a good workout because the female is holding the male back, usually speaking. So with that, it's like we do that.
That's
like,
sexist.
At least in the workouts that Rich programs for us. So with that, we usually don't do many of those workouts till competition comes up, and then it's just like Tasia and I redlining the whole time and just trying to hang on, which is always fun. But yeah, I think just being in the same environment with people, you can kind of learn from them, and it just pays that we just hang out together all the time too.
Yeah, between coming up with workouts, just sort of lounging around and chatting is like honestly a good opportunity to get comfortable with each other.
It is,
right?
For sure.
Because another aspect that you see in a lot of competitions is some teams start to melt down and yell at each other or get super fired up at a judge, or like blaming other people for screwing up, whether it's on your own team or something external, which I think is one of the most toxic things that happens to people in competition, right? Because you're just taking yourself out of being able to do anything effective because you're emotionally invested in something you can't control. So
totally.
How do you guys deal with that? I mean, is that something that just personality-wise isn't an issue, or do you do anything to work on that?
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like that was one of our biggest strengths this past CrossFit Games with independence. I mean, with freedom too, but just knowing my team, like I knew that when shit hit the fan, that like it was okay. Like we're just gonna get through this together. It's not gonna be like people yelling at each other, like, "What the heck are you doing? Why would you do that?" Team imploding. And there were lots of instances where that happened, and we're like, it's okay. We're just gonna like keep working and see what happens. Like the muscle up workout, the second workout event too, where the rings are just like flinging everywhere, and certain people are in lanes where the rings are flinging more than they're in another one, and we're in the middle of that, and we're only at rep like 15 and we're at like 2s and 3s, doing sets of 2s and 3s, whereas like when we did it in practice, we got through those muscle ups in like 3 minutes, you know, all synchro because the rings are perfectly hanging and stuff like that. And we get
and just to clarify for people who didn't see the event,
Yeah.
it was essentially 4-person synchro muscle ups.
ring muscle ups, yeah, exactly.
And did you have to do 30 of them before you could move on? Was that
Yes.
the structure
Yeah,
of it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was 30.
Yeah, and it was a super windy day, and this event was
Yeah.
outside, so it was just kind of chaos. It was very chaotic.
Just mass chaos to start the workout, for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry. Go on.
Oh no. So yeah, the rings are flying everywhere. We're on like sets of 2s, like at 15, like just getting no repped constantly. And one of the judges just goes, he's like, "You guys are doing a lot better than the last team," and that kind of helped my mentality. He's like, "I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say that."
Yeah, it's very unethical.
But I knew just like within that, it felt like everything was falling apart. But at the same time, like especially Darren has this magical quality of just being like, "You guys, we're fine. It's okay. We're doing great." And like everything's just like you feel like the world is like exploding. And he's just like, "We're gonna make it through. All right, let's do 2s." And then we actually ended up getting done with the muscle ups like I think maybe second in our heat or something, even though it was still like terrible time. It took like, you know, a really long time, longer than it should have. But then we're like, all right, here we go. And then we kind of got back into the groove of it, and then we were good to go. So there were workouts where we struggled, but that was our strength, was like, no matter what, we're going to maintain composure. No one on our team would get angry at someone for not doing something, which, like you said, is hugely beneficial. Because certain teams will just kind of like go at each other, and then you're wasting time. You know, the person that messed up is like, obviously they feel bad already for messing up, but then you yell at them, and then that's not putting them in a better mental spot. And it's really all it is like, we joked around about it a lot too. It's just really constant damage control at the CrossFit Games. And so if you have calm teammates and people that can work together and not get mad at each other, like Rich always says, everyone here is trying their best. Like no one's trying to mess someone, you know, up or screw someone over, or like, oh, I messed up on that thing on purpose. Like we're all trying as best as we can, and we worked as hard as we can. So it is what it is, you know. And I think that's a really valuable viewpoint to have, especially in team competition.
What about just, I guess, day-to-day training? I mean, you guys are around each other so much that there have to be moments where people get a little fired up or edgy with each other. How do you guys handle that? What does that look like?
We just make fun of each other all the time, and then people don't really get mad.
So it's kind of like a locker room culture of constant bullying and
yeah, that's pretty
and
much
teasing, so that everyone just gets so desensitized to it that
exactly. Or like if everyone's kind of having like has been having a tough week or something, then it just kind of gets quiet. But no one like really gets like mad at each other. Actually, okay, so sometimes Rich gets mad at us for wanting to lower the calories so they're not equal to the men's calories. I'm just kidding. So that's the one like debate that we have that we kind of like argue about here and there.
How do those arguments typically go?
He's like, you had to do 1,600 meters on the bike or get the games, and so did the guys. That was even. You guys had to do 30 muscle-ups, just like the guys had to do. And then we're like, yeah, but check out this sweet Wadapalooza workout that just came out that the guys had to do 30 muscle-ups and the women had to do 20. Or you know, the calories at regionals were 30 and 20. Or 90 and 60. Because they'll be like, all right, we'll scale it. We'll scale it for you guys. And so one of the workouts we did recently was a bunch of rounds of like rowing into muscle-ups, into strict handstand push-ups, to muscle-ups to rowing. So anyway, he did like, you know, if he was doing a 40-calorie row, he let us do 37 calories.
Oof. That's pretty generous.
Right? Sounds like a pretty good compromise there.
And then he knocked like 2 muscle-ups off every time, so.
I guess it's fair if you guys are doing like if you're paired up like male-female, it makes sense to scale those numbers because it keeps the pair moving at the same pace. But I'm with him. If it's just individual workout, then there's an element of just, wow, come on.
Ooh, I will not tell him you said that. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah. So what is your argument for wanting to do less? Just laziness and general sloth?
That's definitely what Rich would tell us. Well, when it comes down to it, like especially with when we're like the way we do workouts, since we'll do them over a bunch of times, we're just trying to get the same stimulus. So like if he's doing, you know, whatever calories and he's off the assault bike in like a minute, but it's taking us 2 minutes, then we're never getting like a faster workout. It's always like a more slow, like drudgery type, which is fine, but we're going to be more endurance based then and not be able to really sprint when it comes down to it, you know?
Are you trying to say you can't maintain the same pace on an assault bike as Rich?
I am, yeah, in fact, the same.
All right. You need
Actually,
to stop with this negative self-talk.
When we practiced there was the regional event with the assault bike and deadlifts. Darren and I did the longer one, so he did 90 calories, I did 60, and then we did, 40 deadlift? 30? I don't even remember the workout. Anyway, the calories on the bike, he's like, I think it was the second time we tried it, he's like, Kristin, I'm going to do something crazy. If it implodes, like, I just won't do it again. And he got off the bike before I did, doing 90 calories. I was like, all right, sweet.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
And did he implode on that?
He imploded on the deadlifts after that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So then at regionals, he was still really fast, but he got off the bike just slightly after me. And then, so.
Yeah, much better strategy.
That's a terrifying thought when like your calories are already scaled and you're like, am I going to be able to complete this before my partner who has more calories?
Certainly say something about your character if you were not able to.
I know, right?
So we touched on this a little bit, but obviously there's been a lot of changes to the CrossFit Games season for 2019. And I don't think anyone still 100% knows exactly how all of this is going to shake out. But I mean, what have the conversations been for you guys? How are you guys approaching the new structure?
I mean, we're kind of just being open-minded about it. Obviously, kind of usually after the games, we would just kind of wind down for a while and just do like one session and be more chill about it. But we just took like a few weeks off of intensity and doing a lot of volume, and then we kind of like ramped back up again because of the new structure of having to teams can only qualify through one of the 16 sanctioned events, I believe. So we kind of have to ramp up again. We didn't know if we were going to do Dubai, then we decided against it. But now we're getting ready for Wadapalooza, so it's just kind of like jumping right back in, and then just kind of really just playing it by ear at this point, you know, like you just got to go with the flow and just accept the changes. You can't be like mad about it or whatever. You just got to see kind of what happens.
So
yeah, similar to being in the middle of an event and having stuff go wrong. You're just like, well, okay, we'll just keep working out and see what happens.
Here we go. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Has Mayhem received an invite for Wadapalooza for the 4-person team?
Yes.
Yeah. Curious to see who the other 9 teams are going to be that get those invites.
Is it only 10 total?
Yep. There's no qualifiers.
Oh, really?
Just 10 teams invited. So.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't even know that. Learn something new every day.
I assume they've all been invited by now, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, I would assume they would all be invited by at least the time the qualifier ends, which it just did. So yeah,
right.
I would assume so.
Team qualifier starts in 10 days or something.
Yeah, but I think that something else that's interesting is obviously the change in the rules surrounding team location, right? That teams are no longer required to be at the same affiliate, which I mean, for you guys, you all train together anyway, but are you now nervous about super teams being formed to take down your throne?
I mean, there are obviously going to be super teams that are forming. But I think the strength with us is just like I was talking about earlier. We train together all the time, and when it comes down to it in competition, you have to know the people on your team really well, and that's just going to be a strength of ours. And I don't know, I'm excited to see what happens, because it'll be interesting to see. We kind of saw maybe a few kind of, granted you had to train at the same gym, but kind of super teams come together this past year. And I mean, sometimes they did well, sometimes they imploded, and it was interesting to see. So I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think that the dynamic of team is also interesting too, because it's such a well, you don't know what the events are going to be, obviously, but the way that different individuals complement each other for different events is very variable, right? That it's not just, these 4 athletes are the best individual CrossFit athletes and they necessarily win, because sometimes it has more to do with someone being able to do certain types of gymnastics movements, or someone being really good at certain power output, or it depends on like the way the strength events are structured. So It's not always just, okay, throw these individuals together and they'll win. It's more about being balanced and adaptable to the events. And then, sort of like we said before, not freaking out and hating each other and hating the judges and all that kind of stuff.
Totally. And I think kind of luckily for me, Rich has pointed out too, that for teams, like, strength is less important. Like, there's usually just like one strength event out of the whole games weekend or week or so. So you can kind of focus on a lot of the other stuff. And then, if there's one bad event that everyone kind of has together, then it's okay. Or, if you have one glaring weakness, it's okay. But you kind of have to be just, better than normal at all the rest of the stuff. So.
Yeah. So what are you currently working on? What's something that you're like, okay, this is a thing I need to fix, that I need to handle?
Well, I'm always trying to work to be stronger, but then swimming too is still a work in progress. My swim this year went a lot better than years past, because we do swim twice a week. So that was really helpful. And so I'm just trying to get better at that. That's a good one.
Is it working?
I think so. It did from the last year to this year, so hopefully it'll just keep getting better. But yeah, I mean, there's always something to work on. That's the cool thing about CrossFit. You'll never get to a point where you feel good enough.
Yeah, I think that's something about humans in general. Humans in general never feel good enough.
There you go.
So with those specific weaknesses that you're working on, right? I mean, swimming and strength stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but obviously you're sort of showing up and just doing whatever is written down. How do you focus on things that you need to work on as an individual that may not be something that other people on the team need to work on?
Well, one of the nice things too about Rich programming is he programs for people's weaknesses too. So that's one of the really cool things about here is if one of us is maybe not bad at something, but not the greatest at whatever, then he'll program it, and everyone kind of does it in like solidarity, with the person, like kind of helping them. Like with swimming, Rich doesn't need to swim twice a week, but he's like, okay, obviously, Tasia was on his team, and and I needed to swim too. We both really didn't have much swimming experience. So he's like, all right, obviously he doesn't need to get better at that, but he wants to be there to support us while we're trying to get better at that, even if it makes it more stressful. But yeah, that's the really cool thing is like, when the handstand walk course came up, like for regionals, and then we assumed it would be in the games, he just like programmed that like nonstop, because it was kind of a weakness for everyone. Or, if I'm, bad at wall balls or whatever, then he'll program those a lot. And just until the point where we're like, we get better at them. And also if we see them, we're just like, we just don't care anymore. It doesn't elicit like an effect of like, oh my gosh, I have to do this movement,
Yeah, so it's kind of like viewing the entire team as one athlete.
Yeah, totally. And he takes all of that into account.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like, oh man, my right calf is a little weak, so do some calf raises. Thanks for listening. While you're here, go ahead and head over to your podcast player, subscribe to the show, give it a rating, give it a review, all that good stuff. You can also go ahead and click through to the show notes where you can find out more about us at legionsc.com and also follow us on Instagram at legion.sc.